Hello, everyone. I'm here for one of my stories. This is Lindsay Dunn, and we are back for 1899, episode 2, The
Back.
Boy. With me, we're back with The Boy.
Well, I'm a man, but okay.
Not you, the episode.
No, I know.
Yeah, the
I know.
episode
I'm
is called The
joking.
Boy, but I am with a man named Anthony, a man named Blakcinephile. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about this.
Yes, it's definitely getting more intriguing. Before we get into the recap, we have a little business. If you're curious and you're tuning back in, we really appreciate it. But just so you know, our schedule, we will be dropping these episodes about one every 2 weeks. My YouTube handle is apparently live now, which I didn't know. So you can find
Nice.
those. You can find those on youtube.com/ at one of my stories or on SoundCloud. So if you don't like to subscribe to channels, you can or if you don't subscribe to Twitter, you can just follow us there. Also, I have a few corrections, a few things that I won't say we because it was me got wrong. And so I want to take just a little time to make some corrections. So the first one is about that sweet arrangement of White Rabbit. I had said the arrangement was by Ben Frost and I believe a progeny of David Bowie, but the name is actually Elliot Sumner, who is the child of Sting, not David Bowie.
Oh,
So I wanted to correct that. Just so you guys know, I'm not a complete idiot. I do love music, so I wanted to give Elliot props. Get the right ancestry going on here. So it's
that version is so haunting, man. Like I remember I was watching the episode today, and that opening theme came on. I'm like, that's such a dark version of White Rabbit, but it fits so well. Like I don't know. It's kind of like unsettling to me with the whole kind of like I don't want to say shifting, but it sounds like a distorted version of White Rabbit. You know what I'm saying? And with all the visuals and stuff, I don't know. It's a nice unsettling opening.
The song is already unsettling by itself, the original arrangement, and it's unusual how it's 4 verses. With a lot of songs, you're like, oh, we're going to do a verse, and we're going to do a chorus, and we're going to do a verse, and then a bridge and a chorus. But in the case of White Rabbit, you have 4 verses and then sort of a tag, which is free your head or feed your head. So it's not even really a chorus. So the song is already kind of a strange arrangement already. But yes, when you have, in this case, they only use verse 1 and verse 4. And then I believe they do the feed your head, but it's backwards. So some of the music is distorted. Yeah, it is really creepy, but that is who is responsible for that song. The other thing that seemed to get a lot of attention in the 1899 Facebook group is when I posted about Oleg being a Ukrainian name. I had said that he was Polish, that he spoke Polish, but that the name is Ukrainian. And in my defense, I did find a website that said it's a Ukrainian name, but I had a lot of people come on that were very upset and said, no. Actually, Oleg is a shortened version of Alexander, and it's a Polish name, and it's not Ukrainian. So there are actually different websites that say different things. One says Ukrainian, the other says it is a Polish name. Most names can have different roots, or things get confused through time. People have history. We know that history is up to the interpretation. So, but I did speak that as kind of, it was fact that it's a Ukrainian name. So apparently not. My bad. But no offense to the Polish people. And then I did want to give a shout out to another podcast because they gave us a shout out. So fair is fair.
Nice.
Yeah, Sweet Child of Time podcast. This is run by Steve Barnes. Yes, his name is Steve Barnes, which is wonderful. But he is known as Introvoid, and James McCollum, who's Marshland Monster. Their podcast actually started because they did recaps of Wheel of Time. And now that that's done, they've shifted over to 1899. I guess they like anything dealing with time and rhymes with time.
Now, Wheel of Time, the series, like the show, or Wheel of Time, the books?
The television series.
Oh, okay, cool.
And they're doing recaps, Steve and Nate, who's also known as Void Master, and they gave us a shout out because I wrote them a letter about the music, the soundtrack, because they had questions about it too. So I wrote them an email, and as a thank you, they shouted us out on their podcast. So
shout out to them.
Give them a listen, guys. They have some very we can't all be perfect. We do think we have some things to say, but definitely, listen to more than one podcast if you have time to do that. Ooh, all right. So I had given us both some homework, and we won't do a lot of this any episode because the episodes themselves are already so meaty. But I did want to spend a little time talking about the name meanings behind the Prometheus and the Kerberos, which is a German spelling of Cerberus. So, Anthony, what did you find out about the Prometheus?
I mean, the basic definition you see concerning Greek mythology with Prometheus is, a Titan god of fire. When talking about Prometheus, you have something that's best known for like defying the gods, by stealing fire from the gods and giving it to humanity in the form of technology, knowledge, and civilization. Now, there's also a thing of Prometheus as well as like how would I put this? Part of things with Prometheus was that there can be overreaching or unintended consequences.
No, definitely.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to word that without sounding stupid. But like, because, with Icarus, like that's one of my favorite tales, like you fly too close to the sun, you get burnt, listen to your parents, listen to wisdom, you know what I mean? And I feel like the same thing is with Prometheus, where, the kind of tools that are presented to you by this Titan god of fire, you can overuse them and, use them for the ability, use them for what they're not intended to be used for, and actually end up self-destroying yourself rather than self-benefiting yourself. Like the best thing I can try to name is like, have you seen Eternals?
Yes.
Okay, so Brian Tyree Henry's character, there's a moment in the film where he's standing in the ruins of a war, and he's like, I built this technology for these people to protect themselves, and it brought nothing but destruction. He's kind of like a Prometheus type of hero. He wanted to save humanity through his own way, but it just led to more destruction and more war. That's kind of how I perceive the whole meaning behind Prometheus. Hopefully, with the future of this show and how that's going to go, because this boat, we know our captain's determined. We know our captain has something going on in his mind, and we learn more about him in this episode. But I feel like he might run into an issue of overreaching.
Yeah, I love that. Your definition, I think, is perfect. Being it's a symbol because it is used often as example of like unintended consequences, reaching too far. Because when you put out a technology, you never know what people will use it for. So yeah, so it's used. That's the name in Greek mythology. Did you find any other uses for that name? Things that came up in your search?
No, not really.
Okay. I had just a couple. There is a software that is a monitoring system and time series database. I didn't have a lot of time to look into this, but apparently there is this software monitoring system that's used for things like analytics that is called the Prometheus. There's also a spacecraft. There's a famous spacecraft known as the Prometheus, as well as a moon on Saturn is named Prometheus. So these are just fun things to speculate about with the fact that they named the ship this. What, you know, could be any of these things, a combination. So how about Kerberos, also known as Cerberus?
Kerberos. So what I learned about this, again, going back to Greek mythology, is that Kerberos was the three-headed dog that protected Hades. Mm-hmm. And I believe you know, there was a task where Hercules had to go fetch Kerberos as one of his tasks, that the goddess Persephone, am I saying her name right?
Persephone.
Persephone told him he had to do. So with Kerberos like guarding the gates of the underworld, so remind me again how that connects to the show. Like where do we see that word?
Well, the Kerberos is the name of the ship that Ike is captaining, right? And there's all these passengers on.
Okay, all right, so that makes more sense to me. Well, that doesn't sound good at all. This all sounds dark when you put it in context of the show. Well, do I feel like this ship is guarding the underworld? I think the underworld could possibly be guarded through its passengers. You know, we've seen 2 episodes so far of different perspectives. We've seen Moira's perspective of being, you know, in some institution, asking her father what happened on the ship. We've seen the captain in a moment of his disturbing, tragic past. So is the underworld another dimension? You know, I feel like that's the question here. Like they're going to the new world, which I kind of assume was America. And and we learned in this episode they're coming from Europe. So could America in some sense be an underworld of sorts? Or I don't know. You know, I feel like it's interesting to think about. What did you find?
Well, besides, I want to come back to that meaning, because that's the main one I was interested in, the three-headed guard dog of the underworld. There's also a network authentication software where you have to prove your identity to me to be able to pass through. So it's a way that companies can, I guess it's the same with like our encryption software with the movies. When we get screeners, we have to like do an encryption thing and prove that we're who we say we are.
It makes me feel more official when we do that. I go, oh, wow.
There's also a moon of Pluto called the Kerberos. And there's a couple other meanings. But if you go back to, this is just like, okay, wild assumptions here. But if the Prometheus looks abandoned, and we've talked about nocturnal shadows and could there be ghosts on the ship. So if we think about the Kerberos or Cerberus, their job was to make sure the dead did not escape. They had to stay in the world of the dead. So if the Prometheus theoretically contains the souls of the dead, then the Kerberos's job is, no, you cannot escape. You have to stay on this ship. You are forever damned to be on this ship. And the Kerberos is this guard dog. What the captain's doing, the captain is like, let me go explore the ship. Now, it's sort of reversing things, but in a way, the captain is being the Prometheus by, he sort of could be some unintended consequences for him going against the sensible path. The sensible path would be what everybody told him to do. Let's leave this alone, let somebody else do it, because this is kind of spooky and scary. But he is continuing on with this path no matter what. So that's kind of the broad strokes of how I would interpret it. If I was to say the biggest thing is like the Kerberos is the guard dog, but the captain might be not doing his job as the guard, the head guard dude that's supposed to be captaining and protecting. Yeah. And I mean, his job is to make sure these passengers arrive safely from point A to point B. And he's being a maverick by going off on his own path.
Oh no, I definitely think there's going to be a lot of trouble with Ike. You know, he seems like he's very strong willed in the worst sense. So
Hmm.
I definitely see some unintended consequences coming.
Hmm. Yeah, you worded that all perfectly to tie in with the show, I think.
I
So
try.
yeah, so the second thing is these little scarab beetles. Now,
Mm-hmm.
these little scarab beetles are the ones that are on the ship we've seen. They they can unlock doors. They can what else? They just seem to have directional. They're like compass. Like they take you where you need
Mm-hmm.
to go. So
Right.
what did you find out about scarab beetles?
Well, one thing I already knew before I looked it up. I remember I had a friend in college, and I believe she was Egyptian. She had given we were all in a film production class, and she had given us all scarab beetles. They're for good luck. Now, funny story. My mom is a Jehovah Witness. I'm not. I'm a non-denominational Christian. But when I got back from college and I came with that scarab beetle, she was like, "What's that for?" It's like, "Oh, good luck." It's like, "Oh, well, I don't believe in some beetle being luck." Like kind of like turn her nose up at me, like in a funny way. But I know that with those kind of things, like nowadays you can use them as luck, but what I learned about it is you know the hieroglyph of a scarab, I think it's called Kepper. It refers to the ideas of existence, manifestation, development, growth, and effectiveness. Many things you can tie out of that, or draw from that. I don't really know what to make of that in terms of this show, because it's like I still feel like we don't really know what the beetle is. We
Hmm.
don't really know what it symbolizes, but I know it is. It may be connected to the underworld, in sense of the underworld in this show, or in the sense of another dimension. Whatever it is, I know it came from that Prometheus ship, and it ain't nothing good.
Well, there's still a long way to find out about that scarab beetle. But they do seem to be handy to have around. And interestingly enough, you might have seen this, but we had a poster released for the new DC Blue Beetle movie, and the poster is a huge old scarab beetle. And I find out by
I
I don't
remember
know
you
much.
talked about that.
Yeah, I don't know much about that character, but
Me
it's
neither.
yeah, but it was just kind of an interesting conglomeration of events happening, confluence of events, I guess is what you'd say. The world is, you know, obviously the scarab beetles have been a thing before 1899, but they are do seem to be cool little things that very handy to have around.
I feel like this episode had a nice flow in shifting perspective
Hmm.
with the cold open. Because I thought we would just be following Mara as our
Hmm.
main protagonist this whole time. Like we were mostly following, I believe, in Dark Eric. Like I believe the main character was Eric, right? The kid in the yellow
Jonas. Jonas.
Jonas. Yeah, we was mainly following Jonas. I thought that was going to be the same deal here, but no, we start off with Ike, and we
Hmm.
start off with Ike transported to a very tragic event in his life where his family, his wife and daughters were burned alive, and he wakes up from this vision or memory. We don't quite know, and we see the triangle. I think we see the triangle in his eye, right?
Yeah, he wakes up and there's a black pyramid in his pupil.
Pyramid, excuse me, pyramid in his pupil. And I like that. I like that, with a series like this, with only, I believe we just got 8 episodes, shifting of perspective is good. A lot of this episode, I felt like, all right, it's a little bit turning wheels, but we still in the beginning. But I like how it kept our attention with, we're constantly moving. Even
Hmm.
though we start off with Ike, we're still constantly shifting perspectives here. Things are turning its wheels, but they're turning its wheels in a healthy manner. You know what I'm saying? We're still
Hmm.
moving forward. Um, I won't say the shoe really drops until like the final shot, but we'll get to that. But like I feel like there was a nice change of pace here. So what did you feel about it with the opening up with Ike?
Yeah, it was interesting that they started with a new character. It reminded me a lot of the show Lost, when you would sometimes spend a whole episode getting to
Love
know
Lost.
Jack, and then it's Kate, and then so it wasn't just focused on the one character. And I do think that was a smart move, because it also, we can start to draw connections. Mara, the wake, there was like a wake up, and it was her father's voice. In this case, but it sounds like it's Mora's voice that tells the captain to wake up, which is like, okay, well, next episode, if that happens again, is the voice going to be Ike saying wake up? Is it a chain like that's going to keep going into it? But what that did was, it showed in episode 1, it showed a scene, something from Mora's background that we wouldn't know otherwise. And so in this case for Ike, they did that again, and that led to people understanding what happens in this episode better.
I want to hear more from this so-called company that Ike and his ship crew work for, because for them to just bring back a message saying, "Hey, sink ship," it's like, whoa, just sink the ship, like that just sink it. And I want to know more about this company that they work for, because there's one point in the show where he's staring right at it and he's talking to his one of his number two man, and he's like, I don't understand all of that metal, all of that what was he say? Precious metal on that ship, and they just want to sink it. It makes no sense. It adds a lot of mystery that I need answered.
Yeah, there was also the fact, we find out that the ship was bought by a British company, but they kept German crew, which surprised the German parts of the staff. They expected maybe to be let go when it was bought later. But there's obviously a lack of trust on Ike's part, which who could blame them? Because now the ship is sending them, the company is sending the messages, but the company isn't acknowledging any of the messages that the Kerberos is sending. They're just saying sink ship, and it's 2 words.
Yeah,
it almost sounds like a child, what a child would say. Like, you're not going to say a full sentence. You're just going to say 2 words.
I mean, like, it's no time to waste. Sink ship, sink the ship.
I mean, yeah. They already pointed out, we're not making any money. They're not making any profit. So we can only afford to send you 2 words. That's all you get.
Let me say this, man. That little boy is creepy as all hell. I mean, he, like, whatever young actor they chose for that role, he's doing a great job with little to no dialogue. One of the best moments out of this whole episode to me, it's a small moment, is when Maura was with the young boy, and she sees the upside down triangle, I believe, on his neck, and she goes to inspect it. He just grabs her hand, grabs her wrist, you know what I'm saying, stopping her. And I'm watching this with headphones on because my wife is doing some cleaning and stuff around the house that's a little noisy. And I remember I had my headphones. I kind of like jumped in my chair with the sound effect, with the music score, with the kid grabbing her wrist. I want to see what happens with that little boy. I hope he doesn't stay silent long, because I hate that trope. Where he just, like, I think I mentioned that last episode, where he just says something at the most unhelpful time at all, when things are already going left, and then he goes, "The ship." It's like, that's what you choose to say in this moment. I hope he doesn't have one of those moments.
Yeah, it was a surprising moment for me when he grabbed her wrist, because but then it just kind of throws you off, because up until this point he's been not doing much, being a very gentle soul. But in addition to just the sink ship, I think the bridge, when they went to the bridge, there were all the compasses that were going crazy. All the compasses are going in circles and not giving consistent readings.
Right.
The captain had a compass in his pocket, so all of them are doing that. We can't get a good reading of where we are. So that's, kind of Bermuda Triangle stuff right there.
Yeah, definitely. So, hey, what's the whole deal about the wolf? Because I think I missed the dialogue or missed what it was trying to say. But when the people who shovel the coal to I guess get the ship moving, the workers, they start telling a story about a wolf.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what if you want to recap that real quick in the grand scheme of things? I kind of was a little lost on that scene.
Yeah, so we had the same two, I'm calling them thing one and thing two, the people in the coal room that, because their whole role seems to just be to not work and just talk. In the first episode, they were
Like
the
a
ones.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstein type of thing.
Yeah, in the first episode, the two of them were just going, "Where's the Prometheus? Has been missing for 4 months," and just kind of
Just
shooting the
comment,
shit, the same thing that
right?
all the other passengers were doing. And then they sent Oleg up to do the work while they were sitting around talking. Now Oleg is shoveling coal, and the two of them are interrogating him basically for information. They're like, was there really just one boy and no one else? Who could kill over 1,000 people?
Right.
And one of them says, could it be wolves? And the guy just, the other, I think that we can call him thing one. Thing two is making fun of him. But then the guy says, well, why would a wolf kill everybody but one boy? And then he says, well, what if the wolf is the boy? What if the boy is the wolf? And it is
Okay.
kind of a silly piece of dialogue because did the ship take wolves? Like, how would the wolves? It's a water, a ship on the water. How would a wolf get on unless you brought the wolf with you? But it does, even though it sounds silly, it does kind of have this chilling effect. Like, what if the boy is the wolf? And you're like, ooh, good point. Up until now, we're assuming the boy is kind of a victim. He's been locked in the cabinet. He was abandoned. But what if he's the enemy in disguise?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Good. Good. I like that. All right. Cool. There was something else I wanted to notice. If you look at certain moments in the show, there are certain transition cuts that come off like a glitch. I think we talked about it a little bit last episode where it felt like you thought there was something wrong with your TV, where it's like when certain moments are like cut from one moment to another, it feels like a glitch.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you cut into the opening titles, with the White Rabbit remix, it's like a little bit of a glitch. I think that's going to cut into something that happens later on in the show, especially with that very final shot, which we'll get into later. But I don't know. I got a lot of theories behind that, but the glitches are very disorienting, but to a good effect. Because I remember when Ike is running around the ship and he goes into a room, and then you see a glitch transition effect, and he's transported to the living room of his wife and daughters,
Mm-hmm.
and you get that scary hereditary moment where I don't know if it was his daughter or his wife, but somebody catches on fire, and it's pretty
Oh,
dark. Um, and yeah, that's just an interesting transition effect to me.
well, we could talk a little. You're mentioning, yeah, there's the glitch. The glitch happened, but you mentioned Ike and his family and this vision that is haunting him.
Yeah.
So, we could talk a little bit about more of that. You already mentioned that, we find out that his wife set herself and their daughters on fire inside their house. So at the beginning, he has the vision. He's in the woods and just sees the house, and then he sees the fire happening from a distance, right? There's like the
Mm-hmm.
girl in the window, and there's a woman, a taller person in the window, and we can't really see that close who they are. And as he's standing there, the house lights ablaze. Later on, he comes back and he goes into the room because his daughter is singing this song, and um he's looking at the picture of his loved ones. He hears the creepy song and he walks into the hallway because he's hearing this song. So he thinks, he's like, what's going on? Obviously he knows his daughter is dead, but he's hearing her sing. And then he sees her in the hallway and there's a door ajar. So he goes inside the door and it's his family is in there. Surprise, surprise. Standing around a fireplace, and we see the ribbon in his daughter's hair. Now, last week I had asked you what that object was that he picked up from the ship, and he was picking it up and looking really shocked and upset. And at the time I was like, what is that? And you mentioned it was really colorful. It turns out it's a ribbon that his daughter wore in her hair. So she's wearing that, and we get to see we find out a little bit more about the captain's home life. And so the first scene, he was back. Now he's up close and he's with them and on the ship.
Yep.
And he's talking to his daughter. The wife seems upset that he's late. And his daughter mentions that mom is having these dreams, and but that she doesn't like that he's gone all the time, but that the daughter has talked to the mom and said, he can't be held down. He needs to be free to go. And then he also says, you're not really here. He knows he's not seeing her. And it's this very beautiful. He starts tearing up and she's caressing his face and they hug and he just says he misses her. And that's when she lights on fire. And then he kind of get blasts back from the explosion and they're gone. And that's when he climbs up the ladder, right?
Right.
And he ends up being under the bed in his room.
The whole sequence was crazy.
Yeah. So what did you think about the whole scene?
I think his mind is being corrupted. Whether it's because something from the unknown on board is yet to be seen, whether this is all part of some grand scheme or grand plan is yet to be seen. But I think something is corrupt, whether it's the flow of events on the ship or whether it's something going on internally or mentally. Something's going wrong. One thing you can notice too, I think everything is purposeful in this. Like the waves outside the ship add for some great sound design. Like the waves hitting the ship outside, they sound like they're part of the music score. At some point, you can't differentiate the sound design between the waves outside and the thrilling undertones of the music score. And I think that's brilliant because it adds a little bit more to the paranoia of what's real and what's fake.
Right. And you get this staticky, sometimes it sounds like a staticky record.
Yes. I love that too. This has great sound design.
Ringing tones.
Yeah.
Water, there's like ticking noises, almost like clocks ticking. That happens a few times. Yeah, so somebody mentioned, and I don't do this, but somebody mentioned the proper way to watch the show is with headphones.
It's been making a world of difference for me. I mean, like, I wouldn't say it's required, but you do hear things you probably wouldn't hear if it was just you watching on your TV. I wouldn't say it's required. It's just another way to experience it. It's like whether you listen to an album through your MP3 player or through vinyl, just a different way of listening.
If with a show like this where there's so many subtle noises, I do agree that it would be good. The song, I wanted to talk about the song that the little girl is singing.
Okay.
Because I found a little bit of something about this song, because I assumed, okay, she's singing the song, it must be like a little children's song, maybe, like we have Mary Had a Little Lamb or folk songs like that. And no, this is a German protest song, and the name of it is Die Gedanken sind frei, and it is a song that has been used throughout history to protest any form of censorship or thought control. And at one time, the song was banned from Germany, and it was used as an anti-Nazi propaganda song, even, which leads to why it was banned. But I thought that was interesting because there's a theme throughout the show of what's going on with the mind, and the mind needing to be free to wander. We have Mara, who's not letting people control her, and she disagrees that rules should not be challenged. Oleg is told at one point, down here we don't ask questions. He asks them, why is the ship turning around? And they just say, down here we don't ask questions. And then Mara says, the brain holds all the secrets of the universe. So by default, then, any tampering of the brain is akin to rape, or it's like you're taking somebody's freedom away. And the lyrics of this song say, thoughts are free, who can guess them? They fly by like nocturnal shadows. So that makes me think about the ghost ship. No person can know them, no hunter can shoot them. And so it'll always be, thoughts are free. And if I am thrown into the darkest dungeon, all these are futile works, because my thoughts tear all gates and walls apart. Thoughts are free.
I really think that's what's going on here. Something on that ship. I don't know if it's the Beatles or what, but they're messing with people's thoughts. And I feel like this episode, we just saw it specifically with Ike. Last episode, we saw it with Mora, and I think it happens while you're sleeping. Maybe it's just a thought, but I just a thought. But I really think something's going on with these characters and their thinking patterns.
But then the question is, which is the waking world, and when are you awake and when are you asleep? Are they awake? Are they awake on the ship, or are they asleep on the ship?
I guess we'll find out. But the ship does come off like it's part of a dream, and everybody's in each other's dream. That does sound very interesting. It sounds like that could be what's happening. I feel like everybody who meets each other, there's always some sort of understanding, especially in this episode. Even if someone doesn't understand the other person's language, there's a bit of understanding. Like I said, like human emotion, the different facets of the human face are universal. And I feel like you can't control something like that. That's something that, can be translated, through anything. So I think that's part of the resistance too. People being able to understand each other's human emotion through communication.
And there's another really weird, while we're talking about weird things that make us feel like it's in a dream, I just want to point out that okay, so the captain and Mara, they always seem to talk on that one deck, right? And they're doing it in the hall. They meet in the hallway soon, but the hallway interactions keep getting interrupted by Daniel. But that deck is where they talk. Then for other passengers, like in this episode, we have Jerome and Clements. We have Lucien and Ling. And then we have Angel and Ramiro. They all talk at those two windows, looking at the Prometheus. And their dialogues are strangely similar. Both Lucien and Jerome started their conversation with "Spooky, isn't it?" They both use the same opening line. And there's this repeated dialogue of, "Do I know you from somewhere? No, I don't think so." That's what I'm saying is all the action, there's a whole ship, right? But all the action seems to happen at these particular locations. Like if you want to talk to Ike, go to the deck. If you want to meet your love interest, your potential love interest, go to this deck. It's almost like one of those, like a point and click video game. And you only have this many lines to use. Like you can either say, spooky, isn't it? Or do I know he's like, it's almost like you have limited options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hear what you're saying. It's like one of those old Nintendo, one of those old Game Boy games where everybody's at a mixer and two characters are talking to each other. And you see the word bubbles underneath on which phrase you can use to speak. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's just some of the dialogues are odd, and just some of the things they say, like Lucian's talking to Ling and says he wants to go to Japan one day. And he says, I think it would be great to see the exotic trees and flowers, the rice paper walls, and the oddly shaped houses. Like, I mean, this is not good conversation.
I feel like he got that out of a pickup line book. like let me find things to connect myself to this woman. I think it'll be great to see with everything you just said, and just saying it in such a way that the way it goes, all right, bye, and it just walks away.
Plus, there's the fact that she speaks Japanese. He speaks
right.
French.
Yeah, she doesn't understand them. Right. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, according to him, like according to what he knows, she speaks Japanese. He doesn't know about the Cantonese, con. But it's just, I mean, I think it is kind of typical. I felt like it was typical like conversation like a guy would make if they were trying to impress you or talk to you, but they didn't know what to say.
Virginia, I actually like the dialogue between Lucian and Virginia. I feel like that was a nice little exchange there. A little creepy because it kind of made Virginia sound like she was a pimp or something. Like, oh, well, if you want a distraction from your wife. I like how he mistakes it for her. Like, yeah, I'm desperate. I ain't that desperate. She was like, not me, fool. Like, like her. Like, I thought that was kind of funny.
I mean, she is a pimp.
Oh, that wasn't established in the first episode. I in this episode.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I'm saying it was established. I feel like it was established in this episode. She's like,
okay.
Do you want to hang out with the exotic little bird?
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. So so it is effectively a little creepy, but I just like how he misunderstood it at first. Like, yeah, no thanks, lady. He's like, no, not with me. But yeah, I like that exchange of dialogue. I didn't quite understand. I mean, it felt a little like flirtation, but I didn't quite understand the whole Clemens and Jerome piece of dialogue. Like it just didn't make much sense to me. Like I said, body language is universal. You could tell that there's in the back of their minds a little bit of attraction there, but I just didn't understand their exchange of dialogue.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, they he starts by doing the spooky, isn't it? And then she says, are you Crew? You don't look like Crew. Oh, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but it's impossible not to do that.
Right.
And then she says, working on a ship must be like prison. And she didn't say prison. She said it in French, but the way she did actually like spit out the words. And I wondered, it was almost like, I guess we should maybe interpret that to mean she feels like she's in prison in a way, because she sounded really angry and antagonistic about it. And he says, even the birds are in a prison of sorts because they can only be what they are. They can't escape their fate. So I would say, I don't know, I feel like this conversation is definitely more interesting than the conversation that Lucian was trying to have with Ling. Jerome is getting deep. I mean, he's talking about the birds in the air and you can't escape your fate. I think it's pretty, it's definitely not the kind of conversation you would have with somebody who you're just, it's not cocktail party talk, right?
Right. Yeah.
Kind of getting on a spiritual level almost.
Yeah. I could see how you could say that. I want to talk about Angel and Ramiro for a second. And
Okay.
wait, did you have anything else to say about that
No,
exchange?
no. I was like, yeah, let's talk about Angel and Ramiro. That they had some interesting interactions this
It's
episode.
it's Angel.
Well, since he's Hispanic, I guess that's how I'm saying it, Angel.
Okay, all right. I'll say Angel. So first off, I told you he's not a priest. Like I just that was just it was just so obvious to me in the first episode when Ike is like, hey, we need a priest on board this new ship. And the guy like looks around. He goes,
Mm-hmm.
oh, me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. But so that reveal threw me for a loop. Angel and Ramiro are talking, and Ramiro, like Angel is basically worried about the authorities, basically worried about the authorities finding them out. And Ramiro is like, what part? That we're not brothers, or that you're not really a priest? And one bit of fiery dialogue leads to another. Then they start kissing and
Mm-hmm.
start having sex, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't expect that. I didn't know they were lovers. Like I had thought maybe they were on the lam from something, but I didn't know they were like in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And that makes you side eye Ramiro. I mean, that makes you side eye Angel even more, because Angel was flirting with the Danish gentleman.
Yeah,
You know,
Crester.
yeah, flirting with Crester, and like I really want to know what this guy, like. Is he a guy that's just hedonistic and addicted to pleasure from wherever he can get it? Like, what I really want to know what Angel's angle is.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, what I noticed is that you think, yeah, you don't realize Ramiro and Angel have something going on. I maybe suspected because I was like, okay, there are these two gentlemen traveling together and sharing a room. Most guys wouldn't want to do that. So it could be, I kind of had a small idea that that could be it, but he was going so hard after Crester,
Right.
and then it was apparent on the deck that when Tove comes out and gives him the cigarette case, that was really upsetting to Ramiro. But Angel has a fetish for lower class people, apparently, because Ramiro is his Portuguese servant.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's going after Crester. So my thought about that was that Angel likes power dynamics. He seems to really
Possibly, yeah.
like that aspect to a relationship. And so with Ramiro, he's the upper class of the two, and he can sort of treat the person like a dog in a way. They're his pet and his little project. But as soon as he has you, he maybe looks for something new, interesting to play with.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what Ramiro says. Your mother's right. You use people, you don't really care about anyone. Um
Mm-hmm.
so, and if you notice, like, not to get too pervy about it, but when you notice when they were making love, or whatever you want to call what they were trying to do,
Having sex, yeah.
Angel insists on, basically Ramiro just has to lie there while Angel's doing the work. Like, he wants to be the one in charge, and
Mm-hmm.
he bites his cheek, and he's almost making like animal noises, like grunting and growling, which is, I guess, lots of people make those noises when they have sex, but it's that he bites his cheek. There's almost like snarling noises. And then they go
Mm-hmm.
to this wolf and the lamb painting. So in that moment, Angel is acting like a wolf, and he wants Ramiro to be a lamb and just lie there. Like, you just lie there, because Ramiro tries to reach for him and to take an active part in it, but that's not what Angel wants.
All right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I definitely think there are power dynamics at play with his character. Thought that was a very interesting revelation. Uh, yeah, I really think Daniel is annoying this whole episode because it's like one of those things in a movie where the bad guy is trying to is basically a try hard. They're trying too hard to not look like the bad guy. You know they're the bad guy. It's like when him and Maura meet in the hallway, he's trying to get in her room. He's like, "Oh, I heard some noises from this room. I wanted to make sure everything was okay." Mora kind of already knows something ain't right with this guy. Is she you could see she's like, she's taking her distance and kind of walking. I think he kind of take a few steps towards her as she backs up, or she takes just a little more steps towards him and he's backing up towards his room. I think it's one or the other. But anyway, he's like, oh, I heard some whimpering in your room. I didn't. Do you live here? I'm your
Mm-hmm.
neighbor, and you can tell he's trying to get some dialogue out of her. She's just like warily watching him. He goes, my name's Daniel. She goes, okay, I'm Mora. You
Mm-hmm.
know, she's polite, but she's wary. And there's just many moments throughout this episode where he's just creepy, but I think he's over the top creepy, like to a point where anyone in their rational mind can know something's wrong with this man. like, like when Ike holds the assembly in the dining room and says, we are taking the Prometheus and going back to Europe, and everyone throws a fit and says, no, you can't do this to us. And he comes right behind Mora, like, oh, tough break, huh? You seem like the type that don't want to go back.
Mm-hmm.
She looks at him. It's like I just feel like he has some of the most obvious mustache trolling dialogue ever.
See, I guess I was kind of the opposite. I feel like the episode almost seems so set on making him out to be a bad guy that we're gonna find out he's not that bad. Like our assumption is that yeah, he's acting kind of creepy, and we might think, oh, he's the one that locked the boy up. Um, he's the one that sent the signal but hasn't told anybody. And he's definitely trying to get Mora to open up. But the way he's doing it is almost like, she's the one I believe that asked in episode one. No, not episode one, because he didn't show up to the end of episode. He didn't show up to the end of the episode.
Right.
But in episode two, she's the one that says, don't I know you from somewhere? And he says, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
But then later it's almost like he's trying to feed her cues that they do know each other, because he says like, Mara, that's an Irish name, but you're not Irish. So he's almost like giving her a prompt, like, here's an invitation, like Mrs. Wilson was, here's an invitation for you to tell me more about yourself. And then later he says, surely you must have family at home, or family waiting for you. And then she's like, no, I don't. So he's trying to get her, earn her trust. We also show, he seems to be luring the little girl to the end. He says, I'm sorry. So we assume, maybe he killed her. So it's almost like the show is trying too hard to make him into a bad guy, that I think it's still still questionable.
I mean, be subverted, of course, but I just feel like um we thought the same thing about Noah in Dark, and while some things he did were justified, he still kind of was a creep. He did creepy things for justified reasons, but he was a creep. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Let's talk about Ada and her scenes with Crester, because that
Mm-hmm.
was interesting. She's in and that actually leads to a scene between Angel and Crester as well, where she's washing his hair, and I'm assuming that it is in the third class somehow, because it's like a bathing area. So if everybody has to stay separate, would you'd assume they have separate bathing facilities. Probably the first class people have their own room.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks to him about what she wants to be a doctor, and that she believes that's her calling. And Crester tells her, Mom and Dad won't let you do that. You need to help us build the church. So we find out what the family's doing. They're going to build this church. And she says, it's my calling. And then says, do you know what your calling is? And this is when Crester gets a little pissy, which up until this point, he seemed like a sweet guy. He's the one that came to get help from his sister. And it's in that moment when you start to wonder how Crester feels about his life, because maybe he doesn't feel like he has permission to have a calling of his own. He reacted very badly to that, and is in typical big grouchy big brother fashion, kind of says, get away from me, go bug someone else, take your doll with you.
Right.
I don't know, what did you think about their exchange?
I wasn't really that attracted to it. It seemed like the usual brother sister type of thing, type of like battle. Like, of course, Ada knows best for Crester, and Crester, he wants to go beyond what's down there in the ship with his people. It didn't really. I gotta see more happen with it. It didn't really strike my attention, but like I said, this is a turning the wheels type of episode, so
And then every time Tove comes to talk to him, she drops a little hint too, because she says, remember, you promised me something. She tells him that.
Yes.
And then later she says, she's talking about this cigarette case, and that Angel gives him, and says, you of all people should know rich people never give anything for free. So why does Crester know that better than anyone else? It seems like there's a couple things in his past. And yeah, this was possibly. Yeah, possibly. But the other thing is, this is when Angel just invades Crester's personal space the second time and gives him the cigarette case, and doesn't just hand it to him. Oh no, he's gonna put it in his pocket while making really bold eye contact. I don't know. Did I miss anything? What about this story with Mara that she tells the boy about her childhood?
Oh, right. Yeah.
The way it starts is she's examining him with a candle, almost like she's testing his eye reflexes. And she tells him that when she was young, her dad took her bird hunting in the woods, and she got lost. And then she comes to find out she wasn't lost. Instead, her father purposefully left her there and watched her all night to see what she would do. And that he had implanted this idea in her that you don't know what a person's made of until they're by themselves. And that she resented the fact that he took that away from her. It wasn't that she got lost. It was that she thought she was by herself. And instead, she thought she had a moment when she wasn't being watched. And it turns out he was watching her. So it was like he stole that from her. So what did you think about that story? I thought that was kind of I don't know. I thought it was a big reveal.
I mean, yeah, I think it's a big reveal. I think it lends more to her character and like why she is what she is, and to the complicated relationship she has with her father. Even cutting to that opening scene where she's being carried away by men, talking to a man that we assume is her father, but kind of has like a pre-stature, talking about, I know what happened on the ship. I think it speaks to their complicated relationship.
Mm-hmm. The father isn't coming out looking too good. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
About it.
I can definitely agree to that.
We also had Jerome had some good, I know he had his conversation with Clemens, but he also gets nabbed by Franz and some of the crewmen,
Mm-hmm.
and he gives a good fight.
Yeah, that was a nice fighting scene.
Yeah, he manages to evade capture for quite a while, and I think there were at least 3 guys. It might have been 4, but he held them off a great deal of
It was
time.
4. It was 4.
4.
Yeah. He definitely fought the good fight. It was like how Morgan Freeman says it in Shawshank. I won't tell you that he didn't fight. He did fight. Yeah. I like the transition from my man punching him. And then it cuts to the next scene.
Makes me worry about Jerome. Yeah, I didn't like that we left, we finished the episode without seeing him again. So I'm kind of worried for his fate, I must admit.
Right.
What do you do with stowaways? It's not a pirate ship,
know.
so it wasn't walk the plank.
Well, you don't know. This might be a different type of error here. I don't know what they're gonna do with him. They might put him in the what do you call it, the brig?
The brig, yeah.
Yeah. Who knows?
So you had mentioned Oleg tells them how much coal they have, so the captain decides, rather than continue on the journey, we're just gonna go back and tow the ship. So I thought that was an interesting, then that's when they all gather in the dining room, and he gives them that news, where the scene you said where Daniel's standing creepily beside Mara, and Mrs. Wilson is basically like, well, there are this many people that don't agree with you, and you can't ignore all of us. The captain disagrees with that, goes on his deck, and the only person that follows is Mara. And it's here that he's confessed a few things to her this episode. One thing he told her was that he's hearing voices, finally. But I noticed what I thought was, Mara's the best poker player in the ship, because in the first episode, he says, did you experience anything strange when they're Prometheus? And she's like, what do you mean by strange? And then he says, did you, it's just any question, or do you hear that? Hear what?
Right.
She's like, I'm not going to say anything until you say something. So he does finally tell her he's hearing voices, and he tells her he saw his daughter. So he's starting to trust her more, but she's not trusting him back. And that, I noticed that, because he even showed her his letter from his family, and she has the same letter. So that would have been a good moment. If you're having a reciprocal friendship, that would be a good moment for Mara to say, I received the same letter.
I think she's doing exactly what she should be doing. I think she should be holding her cards close to her chest at this point.
So does that mean Ike was wrong to show his letter?
Not at all, because it gives our true protagonist more leverage to so she can like put all her cards out correctly and see if Ike is a trustworthy person to let in on things. I guess I'm Team Mora in this situation.
Well,
he seemed like you feel sorry for him and you want to see where things go, but like I said, he seems like the overreaching type.
Fair enough that, in the first episode we saw him and he was acting all dignified and he had the coat. And now in this episode, he doesn't have the coat.
He's more unhinged.
He is kind of unhinged, but in that scene, I feel like when she follows him, and he finally is able to admit, here's the letter, and I need to find out what's on the ship. And he even says, maybe this is crazy, maybe I'm crazy, but I have to find out what happened. And then Mara sort of does a repeat of the boy's action and grabs his wrists, and then Mara starts to act unhinged. So I felt like in that moment, that was maybe his most clear-headed moment of this episode, when he finally admits to her what's going on. Yes, and now we're at our conclusion.
This was crazy.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This was a crazy cliffhanger right here. Well, before we get to the cliffhanger, so the Captain Ike, is notified and told, "Hey, you got to come see something." We get an incoming message in the room where they receive messages, and it's nothing but triangles. Don't know what that means. I'm gonna find out what this triangle thing means with this show, but because we see it everywhere. But basically, Ike comes up, and it's a group of men standing around, and they're standing over the body of Ada. Now, I don't know if Ada's dead. She probably is, but she's laying down, eyes open, maybe catatonic, maybe dead, maybe not conscious, and her body is kind of positioned in the way to where she's looking at the Prometheus ship. So we think, oh man, what did that creepy Daniel do here with her? And then we cut to something even more off the wall, and we see each of the, I don't want to say every main character, but we see we see 7 characters, right? I think it's like 7. 1, 4, 5, 6, 7. About eight characters, all individually on a TV screen, just like the TV screen on which we're watching the show. You got Ike, you got Lucien, Mara, Sebastian, the mysterious boy, Daniel, Miss Wilson, Jerome, and Ling. And they're all on different TV screens in a room. We don't know who's watching them. We just know they're on different TV screens. And then cut to black.
Yeah. So that was, it's a wild cliffhanger there.
It is.
When I first saw this, I was kind of, I believe in these showrunners, so it's going to be great, but I was a little disappointed because I thought, I feel like this trope is so common.
Too meta.
Well, I'm thinking about even the Hunger Games. Okay, in the Hunger Games, we're watching all the people fight to the death to be the winner of the Hunger Games, and each of the person is on a TV. Or we had Squid Game, and there was the people playing the games, and then we find the game master who is watching everybody on a TV screen. So it almost seems too common, but I believe in the show. But one of the things these showrunners love to do is they do these shots where the characters there's these close-up shots of their face, and it does almost look like they're looking right at you, and they're looking like they're performing for the camera. And the captain, that's how it ends for him, is they show him the body, and then he looks straight up at the camera, all horrified, like he's looking right at you. And then they back up and all the TV screens.
I thought that was nice. I thought that was a nice transition.
It was well done. It was well done.
Yeah. Now, crazy theory here. I think they're all in a psychiatric hospital and going through drug testing, and they're all being put through this weird dream testing thing, kind of like that show Maniac with Emma Stone and Jonah Hill. That's just a weird theory. We don't know where this is going to lead to yet, but I feel like that would be like a nice solid twist. Or I don't know where this is going to lead to, but I think it's weird that you can catch these certain characters at certain moments like that on TV screens. I'm really like, do you think the beetle is the camera? You think the Beatles are cameras?
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, could be.
But it is interesting that the characters that are on here, we've got Ike, he's in the center. We've got Mara, we've got Daniel, we've got Jerome, we've got Ling. So far, so good. We got Mrs. Wilson, the boy, and Lucien. But Sebastian is on here, the first mate. So I thought that was strange that he's on here, but not, like, let's say Clemens, because Clemens is definitely a main character. We've been watching her, finding out, following. She's doing things like walking to her room, or she's not doing the most interesting things, but yet we're watching her do those things. So our assumption is she's one of our main characters. She's not on a TV screen though. Instead, we have Sebastian. So I thought it was interesting. He's one being watched. But I guess the other thing this reminded me of is Mara's story about the fact that her father took her out in the woods and watched her all night to see what she would do when she thought she was alone.
That's a nice connection.
So is the person who's watching could be her father. I don't know. That's my first thought. And I am glad we can see Jerome on here. So he's not dead. You know, he's still alive. He looks pretty bad.
Beat up. Yeah, he looks pretty beat up.
Lingering questions at this point. Obviously, you want to know who's watching the TV screen.
Right.
Did Daniel kill Ada? I think is probably a pretty big question we're all wondering, because she was a pretty cool character. I liked her character because I feel like she was really smart. Unlike, you know, some kids, I don't know, like I think the boy's okay. I know you don't like those electively mute kids, but
it's just a trope I don't like. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think the casting is good with him, but yeah.
Daniel had a picture of Mara, so what's that about?
I think he could be her brother, but we don't know yet.
Could be the brother. Why does the company want to sink the ship?
Yeah, I need to know more about this company.
Yeah, that was a really good point that which I didn't even notice the first time I watched it, but if nothing else, why don't we salvage the ship's parts and use them to build a new ship? 45,000 tons of steel is the figure that they had. And today I was looking this up because the Sweet Child of Time, their podcast, they were asking the question, how would you even sink a ship? And so I was looking that up, and the process, the traditional process is called scuttling. Okay. Basically, it amounts to you put holes in the ship.
That's what I imagine. Like you just put holes in it.
But it has to be in the bottom of the ship. So it's like, how do you get to the bottom and all that? But today it's pretty much illegal to do that because of the environmental hazards it creates. Because you have, you know, things in the water, you have oil, fuel, stuff like that. All this is going to now be pollutants in the water. So I thought that was interesting. And then a low-key question, I think, would be, what's Lucien going to do now with this offer Mrs. Wilson has made? Is he going to take her up on letting Ling be a distraction?
If he takes her up on the offer and he comes to the bed with more like pickup lines, oh, you know, I heard your culture is beautiful because of these things, I'm gonna bust out laughing.
Yeah. The music track was Child of Time by Deep Purple. And it was, I liked that being, it worked well for me as a ending track.
Yeah, I think it was a nice track to end on for sure.
Well, that is all I have. Any other last points you want to make about the episode?
Let's see if I got any lingering notes, because I think we pretty much covered everything I had. Yeah, no, I'm pretty much all set. Like I said, the sound design is excellent when you're listening to it through your headphones of experience to the show. Yeah. The showrunners of this series, they really use their Netflix money well. And I like that. I like when there's craft in a series that puts a series on a cinematic level. You know what I'm saying? Where it's not like I'm watching a procedural show. Where those are good too for story, but I feel like I like it when a film is on a cinematic level. I mean, I like it when a show is on a cinematic level.
Yeah, and you got good sound design, you've got good music, you've got good visuals. the colors really pop. I mean, you have this Clemens with her red earrings. She's wearing a white dress, and those earrings really pop. And then she has the red boots.
Mm-hmm.
And even though a lot of the things in the ship are dark, triangles everywhere. We have triangles in the carpet. So every frame can be part of the puzzle. And there's all these things in the background, like the art and the songs that they choose, not the like the Nina song, and the fact that it's about thoughts and censorship and thoughts being free. They're just it's just a well-crafted, richly detailed world.
Yeah, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree.
Well, that seems a good note enough as any to end on. Go ahead and remind people where to find you again.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Blakcinephile. That's basically Blakcinephile without the C in black, so BLAKCINEPHILE. You can find my reviews at 8bitwaffles.com. You can listen to my podcast. You can find it on YouTube and wherever podcasts are available. Double feature verses, verses spelled out. And yeah, that's basically where you find me.
Wonderful. And you can find me, of course, on Twitter, Letterboxd, YouTube, Instagram, and now SoundCloud at one of my stories. Okay, guys. So we're going to sign off, and we'll see you guys next time for episode 3, which I believe is The Fog.
Nice.
Bye.